NACDL is the association of the nation's criminal defense bar.
But I'm going to take some bits out of some of the cases that I've done recently and kind of break that down for you. What does the report say? We all get the reports, and sometimes we're like, oh my God, and other times, you know, it's not so bad. But a lot of times it's the oh my God. What does the prosecutor, what the prosecutor says the report says? Because oftentimes I have attorneys that say that, well, the prosecutor said that my guy's all over the place, and I look at the report and I don't see DNA from the client at all. What the report means and what can be challenged in court. So we've talked a lot about challenges. We've heard about challenges. We all know about courtroom challenges. I think courtroom challenges are extremely important. I think the Daubert trilogy, not all of your states have Daubert, I recognize that. But the states that do have Daubert, it was great. It was decided in 1993 and it applied to the science. Novel science versus non-novel science, which forensics is such a baby field that it is still novel science. Then we got Joyner, which applied to the courts in 1997. And then we got Kumho, which applies to the specific case, the methodology, the scientist in the specific case. Now, when these cases came about, I was working for the state police, and it scared the crap out of me that now I have to go into court with all of these books if somebody challenges the science, and I have to sit there for hours and hours being questioned because the prosecution is proffering this evidence, essentially proffering me in my report. And so I've got books. There was one case, and I'm bringing all these books in, and I weighed a little bit more than I weigh today, but nonetheless, I'm still short and fat, and I've got all these books, and I trip, and papers go everywhere. Bad experience. But Daubert wasn't a bad experience. Daubert made me better. It made me, as a forensic scientist, need to know what the hell I was talking about in a way that I was able to relate that to a judge who doesn't know about the forensic science, who doesn't know if it's good or bad. And then the defense attorney that would have their expert that was challenging me. I felt that this was excellent. I had to convince the judge. I had to make sure that I performed correctly, that my report was presented correctly, that it could be read on its own, and what it said could stand alone, that the report could stand alone. That's what Daubert did for me back in the early 90s and late 90s. Now, I get reports that could never stand alone. How many of you guys get reports that unless the analyst is there to explain it, it couldn't stand alone? We're not having Daubert challenges anymore because I will suggest to the lawyers that I'm working with, well, maybe we should challenge this with a Daubert. And some of my lawyers are great, and boom, we're doing Daubert challenges. If it's a state, again, that we can do a Daubert challenge. And then I have many attorneys that are saying, well, the judge doesn't care. It's going to come in either way. Well, I'm a scientist, I'm not a lawyer. And what I say to that is let's at least get it on the record that we tried. You know, it may be a lot of writing, and I'm not a writer, but let's at least try it, because one day, we're going to get another junk science out of the courtroom. We've already seen it. We've heard about it this morning. I'm going to talk about it. We had Daubert. Daubert excited me. I get excited by little things. I'm really stoked about this MGM Grand crime scene experience. But anyways, so we get this book. How many of you have seen this book? Okay, quite a few of you. I got so excited. I bought 4 of these books since it came out. Now, I lose things quite a bit, so that may not mean anything, and I've given them away. But these books, this is the NRC, the National Research Council report on forensic science. It came out in 2009. I was so excited about this report because this report was honest and it challenged forensic science in 2009 after the Daubert trilogy. This is the scientific community, not the legal community, but the scientific community challenging ourselves. That really excited me. It says, as everybody can read, but I'm just going to read it, that nearly every single area of forensic science is plagued by serious questions of scientific validity and reliability. Plagued. Scientists wrote this. We don't even use colorful, flowerful words, but that's some pretty flowerful, harsh statements. Bite mark experts, they can't even answer the question, is it a bite mark? That's what this report found. That's a flaw, I think. Seems to me, I can tell what DNA is when I see it. If a bite mark expert, they should be able to tell what a bite mark is. But they can't. That's what this report says that they can't. Fingerprints. We have seen fingerprints challenged. Nobody wants to challenge fingerprints. They're not novel. They've been, since Sherlock Holmes has been doing them, they've been in the courtroom. They were challenged. They were challenged successfully for a minute, and then the judge reversed the decision. But then the FBI, the poor lawyer out of Oregon, I believe, was arrested for the Madrid bombings, and the FBI came back and said, our bad. Sucks to be you and your reputation and everything, but yeah, the fingerprints weren't that good. And so, very problematic, and yet daily in courtrooms, are fingerprints still coming in 2016? Going back to the title, so I'm trying to tie this all in. 2016, we're still seeing fingerprints daily in the courtroom. And I put that Michael Bowers, he was a bite mark expert. When I was involved with Joyce Gilchrist, professionally, not. When I was investigating what was going on with Joyce Gilchrist, AFS decided that they didn't ban her. They knew what was going on, and they said that she was not following the spirit of their guidelines. They didn't kick her out. They just kind of chastised her and said that she was not following the spirit of their organization. So it would really surprise me when we have somebody like Joyce Gilchrist, which that's a whole nother speech and book, maybe a television show, I don't know. So it really impressed me when AFS actually decided to ban somebody from their organization, and this is a forensic odontologist who did bite mark analysis. So, a few bad apples. This isn't stopping. We have Fred Zane, who I think really was the first person that we heard about in West Virginia and Texas. And then, of course, Joyce Gilchrist. That was in 2001. Fred Zane was prior to that in the 90s. The Dukin from Massachusetts, a drug analyst, fraudulent, I think she actually has jail time because of fraudulent documentation of the drug analysis that she did. This is horrible. and it's not stopping. And I guess the biggest thing that I can say is that we talk about junk science. I don't think the science is necessarily junk. I think the people that are performing the science are junk. And that's strong, but I feel that if you're going to testify or do analysis that could put somebody in prison because of your testimony, you better be sure that what you're doing is accurate, you're not sloppy, and you're not lazy. Some people don't care about that. I certainly do. It's very important to me to know that there are scandals out there. I think Karen in her talk said that you have to investigate the experts, and you do. One of the things that I'm also going to say is that all of these people, they weren't found by ASCLD. They weren't found by organizations like AFS, or I had already said ASCLD, or the National Association of Medical Examiners. They were discovered by other forensic scientists in the laboratory. And it's very hard for forensic scientists in the laboratory to stick up and come out and blow the whistle like Fred Whitehurst and some other people. I have a friend who is just he tried to blow the whistle on some things that were happening in North Carolina. Didn't go too well for him. He was fired. I was fortunate when it happened to me that I had all of the attorney support in Oklahoma. He's had none. He's had to pay for his attorneys. But the problem with that is that his information is going to go unheard. We need to be open in our areas that we live in to forensic scientists who are reaching out and saying, there's a problem with your case. We need to be open to hearing that. Not like it happens every day. Yes? Fred Zane was a forensic analyst. Joyce Gilchrist was a forensic analyst. And Dukin was a drug chemist. All in municipalities, state, city municipalities, police, crime labs, essentially. And they were all fired due to bad science. Fred Zane, he dry benched it. So what dry benching means is that he got a case and he decided without opening the case, say like a sexual assault kit, okay, I saw this many sperm, I'm writing up this report, and he didn't open the case. He just wrote the report. Joyce Gilchrist, in one of the cases that I analyzed, Jeffrey Todd Pierce, who was wrongfully convicted and exonerated after 12 years in prison. She did hair comparison analysis, microscopic hair comparisons. It was a 15-minute rape, and she compared 26 evidentiary hairs found at the crime scene that all matched Jeffrey Todd Pierce. I started looking at the case, and I saw 26 hairs in a 15-minute confrontation. This guy has to be going through chemotherapy to get 26 hairs I've been a hair analyst for a long, long time, and you're lucky to get one out of hundreds and hundreds to have the similar unique characteristics that you're looking for. So 26 sent bells like crazy. So, right on to hair comparisons. It's not as disjointed as I thought, really. Kind of happy about this. And I'm walking around because I'm screwing with the camera guy. Just joking, it's nervousness. Hair comparisons. As I stated a second ago, I am court qualified as a microscopic hair analyst. I'm not ashamed of that. And I'm not ashamed of it because I think that I was taught very well. And I can also say that every one of my microscopic hair exams has been tested by DNA, and all of my results were found to be correct utilizing DNA afterwards. So I am not ashamed of being a microscopic hair analyst. I still think, even in 2016, that microscopy has some utilization in the forensic field. Not to say a match that no other person could be, but it does have some positive potential. What we look at when we're looking at a microscopic hair comparison, we look at 16 possible unique characteristics. 16. We use the magnification of 100 times, 200 times, and our ultimate call is 400 times magnification. We look at the cuticle, the outside of the hair, the cortex, the medulla, the distal and proximal features, whether it was cut, whether it's not cut, ovoid bodies, cortical fusi, pigment granules. So if I looked at mine now, I would have no pigment granules. But when I was younger, I did have pigment granules. So you look at how large these things are. And it is subjective. I'm not going to deny that. But there is a scientific methodology to microscopic hair comparisons. And with those 16 possible hair comparisons, you're never going to be able to say that it's a match of all certainty, but you can get some information from that. Do we see microscopic hair analysis anymore? It's laughed out of court now because of Daubert, because of the junk science, because of the misuse of it, because of the FBI saying that I wrote this down, saying that it exceeds the standards of science. And I venture to say that microscopic hair comparisons do not exceed the standards of science, but the analysts doing microscopic hair comparisons exceed the standards of science. So with that, in 2016, again trying to go back to the title, just to point that out, you'd hate going to a movie with me. What do we look at now in 2016 if we put a hair under the microscope? We look, is there material for DNA? It comes off the microscope. That's all we do. That's all we need it for. We don't look at any characteristics. We don't utilize that science anymore. And yet, ballistics are as prominent as fingerprints in the courtroom today. Possibility of 4 unique characteristics. Now remember, my hair, 16 possible characteristics. Magnification, top magnification that we look at in ballistics, 40 times magnification. Hair, 100, then 200, then confirmed at 400. I'm not seeing any challenges to ballistics hardly anymore. I mean, I did see some, but now ballistics, well, it's been out there, it's proven, it's good. We can't really challenge it because the judge is going to let it in anyway. Well, I've just worked on a case. Well, let me go to this. So they're disjointed. Sorry about that. Real casework. We'll talk about real casework. The first thing that I usually receive, I'll get a call. What I usually receive is a lab report. Laura, can you look at a lab report and tell me what's going on? Yes, I can look at a lab report, but I can't tell you what's going on. I will need the discovery. I will need all the materials that you can possibly get me. I will give you a discovery motion of everything that I would like you to request, but absolutely I can look at the lab report and see what it might be. Because the lab report to me is a book cover. And you might be able to tell some things from a book cover, but you can't tell what's really good in that book until you open it up and start reading it. And that's the discovery. It's what you open up and start reading, or your expert opens up and starts reading. So the problems that I usually am able to identify, not in all cases, but in the cases that do have problems, they stem from the initial responder, the police officers, the detectives on the scene, handling of evidence, storage of evidence. Crime scenes are atrocious nowadays. Laboratory analysis, laboratory reporting, and then ultimately laboratory testifying. Because a laboratory analysis can completely differ from the testimony. That I can read a report and then I'm listening to the testimony and I'm like, where did that come from? Am I in the right courtroom? Because this shouldn't be testified to. So, we moved to Arizona about 10 months ago. Brand new to the state of Arizona. So we turn on the news and we're like, holy cow, what did we get involved in? This is on the news night after night. The I-10 shootings. Have you guys heard about the I-10 shootings? Kind of a big case. I'm getting everyone's DNA after this. Not that it would matter, because none was collected. So I was fortunate to be on this case. And I'm very proud of this case because I think that it shows exactly what I'm talking about with the challenges to ballistics. Leslie Merritt Jr. was arrested September 2015. That day that he was arrested, the governor of Arizona tweeted, "We got him." I wanted to do #dumbass. I didn't. I was new to Arizona. Now I feel that I could. So everybody's going nuts. Governor's tweeting, "We got him." And they've got, if anything, the media has a slam dunk case. The prosecution has a slam dunk case. The governor is in the prosecution's office high-fiving because of this slam dunk case of Leslie Merritt Jr. These are the charges. Domestic terrorism, drive-by shooting, blah, 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 everything in the book. Unlawful discharge of firearms, disorderly conduct, lots of charges going on. Lots of bad charges. This is the gun. It's a High Point. It's almost a brand new gun. It's a High Point 9mm that was found at a pawn shop that is owned, in fact, by Leslie Merritt. This is the first report that came from the Arizona Crime Laboratory. And I don't know if you guys can read that, but I will highlight the sections of the results and interpretations. The test shot, I had to redact some of the stuff because the gag order thing is a little bit, supposedly we're off, anyway, I may be arrested after this talk. I hope I can find an attorney to defend me. Please leave your cards. So the test shots from item 4, which is the 9mm High Point that I just showed you, were compared to KG1 and KG2, which were spent projectiles found in 2 of the cases, were identified as having been fired from item 4, the High Point 9mm gun. Subsequently, there were 3 other spent projectiles that were matched, identified as having been fired from that particular gun. That's pretty slam dunk, isn't it? That's a oh crap type case. Governor's excited. These are the photos that we got from the first lab report from the person who wrote that lab report that was just on the screen. I don't know if you can see, but this is one of the bullets. 20 times magnification was what this was called at. And, I'm just a hair comparison person and a DNA and serology and crime scene and blood spatter and some other things. I'm not a ballistics person. But I can tell those don't match. My neighbor could tell those that don't match. And I live in Sun City, Arizona, where everybody's blind. So the state decided, well, we're going to take one of our analysts that was really good out of retirement, hire him to do a second analysis, because the state knew that Jason Lamb and Ulysses, I always mess up his last name, Farragut, thank you, that Ulysses and Jason had started to assemble the dream team. I only say that because I'm on it. But they started to assemble a team. And so the prosecution knew that. The prosecution knew that we had started an extensive discovery and that we were also going to want to look at every piece of evidence that was collected and retest. So they decided to get another opinion so they could bolster their results and make the governor even happier. Well, kind of backfired, no pun intended. So Leslie Merritt at this point has been incarcerated for 7 months. The defense received this report just 3 weeks ago. The second analyst performed work in early February. However, we just got it 3 weeks ago, and Leslie was still in prison at this time. So this is not the whole report, obviously, but this is really the good stuff. And after looking at the DPS ballistics person, this ballistics examiner who had come out of retirement just to do this case, in the opinion of this examiner, the conclusions that were formed by DPS were insufficient to constitute an identification. In fact, he goes on to say that one of the spent projectiles, it was so badly destroyed that it could not even be examined. And yet the first DPS analyst, who is there working on all the ballistics right now, examined it and tied it to the high point, 9mm, that belonged to the client. And it's so badly damaged that there's not even enough of the jacket to be able to identify that. So, prosecution was a little bit upset, governor was a little bit upset, obviously. This is the day that Leslie got out on an OR bond. He had $1 million bond. The judge, after this report came in, the judge said, we're going to release you on OR. You have to have an ankle monitor. And then, obviously, if you've been following it at all, the case has been dismissed. Now, DPS is still saying most nights on the news, they're on saying that Leslie Merritt is the shooter. They've got more evidence to do. They're going to conduct that evidence and that they will be rearresting him. I don't think so. Anyway, so ballistics problems in 2016? I think so. Should we challenge them? I think so. I think this is a perfect case that says they have to be challenged. So I'm going to go into a little bit about serology and DNA. A little disjointed again, sorry. Serology, study of biological fluids as it pertains to forensic science. The big thing in this slide is that the serology, most serology in the crime labs is being archived. And so they're not using serology anymore. But the serology that they are using, most of the time, it is non-specific presumptive tests that they use. So it's not confirmatory test. So when you get a report back and it says something that is indicated or possible, they're using a non-specific presumptive test. They're not using a confirmatory test. That's very, very important in the case that I'm about to show you. The crime labs are just going straight to DNA. They're relying on the DNA, and they're not looking at any of the biological fluids that the DNA could have possibly come from. So we're missing that question now in a lot of our cases, is what fluid did that DNA come from? Was it sperm? Was it blood? Was it spit? Was it epithelial cells? We don't know because the labs are stopping the serology. They just are going straight to DNA. This is how I do DNA at home. Gets a little messy sometimes, but I have fun. But this is just a quick illustration of DNA and how it works, because one of the things that I think is so important for you guys to know is to actually see it. It's not magic. It's just a series of steps that we take. We have a bloody shoe. We'll take a swab of that bloody shoe and we put it in a little Eppendorf tube that I think Kevin mentioned about the DNA extraction. We'll put it in a little Eppendorf tube. After that, there's a number of ways to extract it. This is a simple bead method of extracting. And extracting means that we're busting open the cell to get to the nucleus, busting open the nucleus to get that DNA out of the nucleus. So that's what we're doing when we're extracting it. We're busting open the cells to get the DNA out so it can float there and we can pick it up and go on to amplify it. PCR. That is what has been challenged by Daubert. Just PCR. Not the extraction process, not anything after PCR, just polymerase chain reaction. Polymerase chain reaction is a series of ramping up. You put after you get the PCR, the floating out raw DNA, you put it in this little machine and you ramp up the temperatures and you ramp down the temperatures. What this little machine is, right here with the laser pointer right there, and right there on that one, that's a Xerox machine for my field. That's just making hundreds of thousands of copies of a single piece of DNA so we have enough DNA to work with. That's what we're doing at this step. We're just Xeroxing the hell out of this little bit of DNA so we've got plenty to work with. Once we have plenty to work with, we put it in this machine that's a genetic analyzer. It sounds ominous, but it's not. It's just a machine that is really kind of cool. It's got some polymer in it. It's got some capillaries in it. It's got a laser and a CCD camera. That's the basics of a genetic analyzer. So you have your sample in there. It goes up one of the capillaries. A laser shoots into a little window of the capillary. It excites it. It excites the sample that's in there. The CCD camera reads it instantaneously, and it comes out, which I'm sure all of you guys have seen the electropherograms. And that's what we need as raw data, as experts. That's what we're looking at, is the analyzed DNA after it's gone through this little series. Differential extraction, pretty much the same as regular extraction, but what we're doing with differential extraction is we're looking at, you like that? I kind of flared the Vegas. What goes on in Vegas stays in Vegas. So differential extraction is used in sexual assaults because you have two different types of cells, or you may have two different types of cells, sperm cells and epithelial cells. So what we try to do is separate the two. So in order to separate them, we take a sample, we put that in the tube. Epithelial cells bust open much easier than sperm cells because sperm is very hardy. So we bust open the epithelial cells, take that epithelial cell sample, put it in a tube, and what's left should be a sperm fraction. The only way that you know that it's a sperm fraction is if at this point, I'm getting really excited about this because this is super important to me. It's my soapbox thing. The only way to know if that's really a sperm cell fraction is at this point, take a microliter, just a little tiny drop, put it on a cell or a slide, fix it, and look and see if you have sperm cells. And if you do, then it's a sperm cell fraction. If you don't, then you can't call it a sperm cell fraction. And that's going to play a big part in what I'm about to speak. So ultimately, a regular extraction, one sample, you end up with one sample at the end. Differential, as sex crimes, you end up with two samples. what the lab, not what I call, but what the lab calls a sperm cell fraction and an epithelial cell fraction. This is a serology report from the great state of Montana. I can rip on Montana because I was born and went to high school in Montana. That's the good things about Montana. I was born in Missoula. A lot of sheep in that state. I absolutely love Montana, and I do a lot of cases in Montana because I love it. However, the Montana Crime Lab, that's the other reason I do work in Montana, because when I see a crime lab that is so horrible, I want to work in that state as much as I possibly can to try to expose the horrific things that are going on in a crime lab. Montana Crime Lab has a huge problem. One of the problems is, this is in almost every report that I get from Montana, this little statement says, laboratory requests a signed letter from the county attorney's office authorizing consumption of the following. They do this even when they have 3, 4, 5 swabs. They write this letter, the police department will write back saying, go ahead, consume it. Not even the DA's office, the police department, and they'll do it. They'll do it. They don't tell us about it. We find out in discovery that it's already been done. The defense lawyers are not notified. Billings, the police department sent your agency. Go ahead, consume it, take it, play with it, do what you want with it. It's not like the defense is going to retest it. Well, yeah, we may. That really pisses me off. Sorry, another soapbox. So the big thing that I want to talk about, why I brought up the differential extraction, why I brought up the regular extraction, why I brought up the non-specific presumptive test for the presence of whatever it is and not confirmatory test, is that report. Semen was identified on. Indications of seminal fluid were detected. Spermatozoa were not detected. Semen was identified on vaginal swabs. Wow, that's a lot of semen. I can say that because we're in Vegas. Oftentimes reports and subsequent testing is misleading. I'm not saying that it's intentional. Yes, I am. But it occurs, and it's very important to keep in mind certain vocabulary. I suggest motion in limines when you have a case like this case. We were able to get a motion in limine for them not to use the vocabulary of sperm cell fraction. It's also an important reason why you have an expert to do an in-depth review to help you. I know that Kevin was saying get as many books as you can, and that I am so in agreement with the lawyers being very well educated. But if you can hire the expert, I don't care who you hire. I'm not here to promote me. I'm not here to promote anybody. If you can hire the expert, get them to get your books. They know what books you need. Get them to help you with your education. So, I'll make this a little bit bigger for you. This is what the DNA report said. We saw what the serology report said with sperm being everywhere. So now this is what the jurors are going to hear from the DNA analyst who's going to testify saying sperm cell containing items, sperm cell fraction and epithelial cell fraction, DNA profile obtained from the sperm cell fraction, vaginal swabs, the DNA profile obtained from the sperm cell fraction. Oh, another one, a DNA profile obtained from again, that's a lot of sperm cell fractions. And yet, did anybody ever view spermatozoa? Not once in this case was spermatozoa ever microscopically confirmed. All non-specific presumptive tests. But they were going to come into court and just repeat sperm cell fraction, sperm cell fraction, sperm cell fraction. What's the jury hearing? Exactly. Sperm cell fraction. Oh, some more sperm. Sorry. It's all over. And it is in Vegas. The finder of fact is hearing sperm cell fraction over and over, or sperm cell over and over again. No sperm was visualized. I think that is atrocious. I think that's absolutely horrible to be able to come in knowingly that there is no spermatozoa in the case whatsoever and constantly repeat that seminal fluid was detected and sperm cell fractions of the DNA was found. That's very hard on the case. It absolutely means nothing. It sounds like it means a lot, but when you investigate it, it absolutely meant nothing in this case. And we were able to walk our client out the door with us at the end of this case. And we weren't walking to jail. So what I think you should use your expert for, it's going to be case dependent. Your expert should have a grasp on any and all things that you have asked them to look at. I think you should use and abuse your expert as much as you need to so you know your case inside and out. Know the terminology. So when you're asking the state's expert something and you can't say epithelial cells or spermatozoa or whatever, amylase for saliva, you use their own terminology so they know that you are a force to be reckoned with. You learn the terminology, learn what it means. One of the things that I promote strongly is that an expert does not have to testify. Oftentimes, I find it very important for an expert to be at counsel table with the lawyer, knowing that I am an ASCLD accredited or an ASCLD certified technical leader. That expert on the stand knows that I'm an ASCLD technical leader, and I'm going to ASCLD and telling them if they lie. I'm going to run and be a tattletale. They know that I'm there with the attorney. I am helping in cross-examination questions. And the best thing is use this, if you can, it's not always possible, if you can, use the state's expert as your own expert. It is so much better for the jury because you don't want dueling experts. Sometimes you have no choice to have dueling experts. But most of the time, you don't want dueling experts. And I'm the little green one on that. Also a Montana case. So, I think we're going to be in time for you guys to go and eat lunch. If you can have an expert during motion hearings, I always suggest that if you can afford it, have the expert at counsel table during trial. But it's also very helpful to have us at motion hearings. This is a Montana case, again. I'm just going to read a little bit to you. This is the direct examination by the prosecution. This is the front page of it. So basically, who are you is the question from the prosecutor. I'm the new crime laboratory administrator for the Montana State Crime Lab. I'm the best. It doesn't say that, but I was the supervisor of the DNA section. I was the technical leader of that section, which is essentially just the lead scientist. Again, I'm really great. That's what the judge is hearing. So we were done with my lawyer, my defense attorney that I was helping. He was done, and I'm like, no, I need to know this. So I'm tagging at his coattails. And I said, I want to know why we have not gotten the discovery that we've asked for 2 months ago. We only got part of it. You tell me, ask him why, since we've got the lab director right there in the stand, why didn't we get it? So my attorney says, okay, one more question, Judge. I've got this little forensic scientist bothering me to ask this question. So my attorney says, do you maintain communication logs for any conversations over the phone between you and, say, a prosecutor, or you and a defense attorney? Do you keep these? Yes. Answer, yes. Would you, again, now we've already asked this in a discovery motion. Would you, again, I'm just asking if you'd be willing to turn those over to the defense and the prosecution. This is the person in charge of the crime lab. I think that those communications are usually held back because they may contain, I'm forgetting the term, legal strategy. I'll have to check to see if we're able to turn it over. Then the attorney says, when you say legal strategy, who would you be doing? What's the strategy, legal strategy between whom? He starts off with, well, the way it's been posed to me in the past, to, on a few cases, to one particular prosecution. This is what you guys are up against. These are state crime labs that have legal strategy going on with the prosecution. They are not the arm of the prosecution. Scientific analysis should be independent. This is nowhere near independent. And this is not just Montana. They consider themselves an arm of the prosecution. And when the arm of the prosecution has the laboratory, you guys need experts too. Now, I have worked for, well, I started my career at the Texas Department of Public Safety and then Oklahoma City, and then I've worked for the prosecution on the Kobe Bryant trial and John Benet Ramsey. But the prosecution doesn't need me anymore. I am willing to work for the prosecution. They don't need me because this is what the state laboratory systems have turned into. They have their experts that will say and do anything. And I say that because we had a discovery motion signed by a judge saying that I got communication logs. And this lab head is on the stand saying, no, I don't think so because that's legal strategy. Well, the judge kind of got mad at this whole thing, and I ended up getting my communication logs. But if I wasn't there helping at the motions, I don't think we would have gotten the communication logs. So not all the time can an expert help you, but sometimes an expert can be very helpful. So the takeaway is have fun in Vegas, biggest one. Learn a lot. We still need to challenge the science and the scientists. You know, Daubert was 22, 23 years ago. If we can, let's still use it. Look into the analyst, the medical examiner office. Look into the CV, their certifications, not their certificates. A lot of people, especially say nurses, will say, I have a certificate. Well, that's not a certification. My cat has a certificate from the vet, but I'm not gonna hold my cat out as an expert, not even on mousing. But that's essentially what's being said on the stand. Well, I have a certification. Do you? Or do you just have a certificate? Most of the time when we ask that question, we're gonna find out they just have a certificate, and it's of attendance. So keep that in mind when you're asking these questions. Always keep in mind, DNA may tell you who the evidence comes from. It doesn't tell you how, when, or where it came from, especially with the serology, the lacking of the serology exams nowadays. If people have a conversation with the forensic people that are going to testify, try to write it down or tape record it so you have them, because oftentimes they will change after they have the secret communications with the prosecution, if that's going on. Obtain all the discovery reports, notes, conversation logs. Use your expert. If you need one, use one. That's all I have.